full groups. We had 17 full groups last year, 544 people in 12 different countries. And we'd love to expand this fest to 80 countries around the world. I'd really like it to be a global community of poets for peace.
How you get through the 30 days, you let go of perfectionism, which is a struggle I know many poets have and many people have. It's a learning experience that way, to send out a poem every day, because it goes straight from your head onto the postcard and out the door, and you don't have time to make it perfect. And freeing yourself from that constraint is a great way to just think, I can just put this out there and the people who are on the receiving end will appreciate that thought.
What I love is the sense of community, and how this is sort of a magical community, because it is all these people that you don't know, mostly. I mean, there are a few people that I've actually met face to face, but I just really enjoy finding those postcards in the mail. There's nothing as wonderful as getting that kind of mail, especially today when most of us do our mail electronically. And this is an exception, and it's a wonderful exception. As far as how I pursue it, I guess each year I've done something slightly different. A couple times I've come up with an idea for a theme, something that I would write about every day. One year I wrote, each poem started with the last line of the previous day's poem. So there was just this sort of very surprising flow. Never knew where the poems were going to go. This past year, when I went back and looked at it, it was not especially intentional, but I pulled words out of other people's poems and sort of infused my poems with their words, and they got credited in my poems, but it gave me this extra language that was really wonderful to work with. So I find that there's lots of different approaches, and I have been really enjoying it. And I look
the Postcard Fest and the kind of trying to escape perfectionism reminds me very much of a study that I read about ceramics, where two separate ceramics classes were given two separate sets of instructions. One class was told, make one perfect bowl. You have 5 hours, make one perfect bowl. The other class was told, you have 5 hours, make 100 bowls, make them as crappy as you can make them. Who cares? 100 bowls. And guess who had the better bowls at the end? 100 crappy bowls. So I kind of think about that when it comes to the Postcard Fest, and how fun it is to just like let that go and just really have fun with it, enjoy it. So here's one of my postcards from last year that got bounced back to me. I had been saving my trash because as an artist, I do these things. The trash was bits of tea bags. So this is all like tea wrappings, and this from a box of tea, and these two. And when Paul told me about the fest, I was like, I'm gonna make my postcards out of tea. And so I put on all of them a quote: sharing tea with a fascinating stranger is one of life's true delights. That's from Avatar: The Last Airbender, from Uncle Iroh. And so whenever I was stuck or something, any kind of writer's block, I brought it back to tea. Time is a lonely love note. The dream within, the time within, the dream within, the clock within the dream, there is a dong, 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 dong. 6 is a lucid number, halfway between a mug of tea and a pleasant dream. I am a sea turtle flipped on its shell, as much 6 as any other number, or 9, who cares how many friends send love notes as long as love notes are being sent.
You know, it's also kind of nice to get a note from someone who already read my poem, because I mailed mine out to them, and for them to respond to it in some way. So I think I really want to try doing that rather than sort of writing in isolation. So writing more in response to something else. I know one thing with making my own cards, same thing with like Zach. It's like during COVID, it's like, I'm not going to buy anything. I'm going to use what I had. So yeah, I cut up boxes. I was fortunate enough that I bought an old school paper cutter for a couple bucks at a thrift store many years ago. So I love chopping up paper, and hopefully paper is the only thing I chop. But and one thing I really enjoyed too is a friend gave me a bunch of sheet music, old stuff. So I used sheet music on a lot of my collages. And another thing I totally love using is old maps. And so either from an atlas, from road maps that, you know, I still have some that were my parents, and I'm having a hard time parting with those. So maybe making them into something might be a good way for them to take on another life. And one thing that I would say, I think it's important to make sure that you document your work. So I take a photo with my camera of, you know, front and back side. And I also am typing each poem as I go along. So I have a Word doc of that to come back to. Another thing that works really well too is file folders. They're great. They're easy to cut. They're most often clean on both sides. So
I think this is year 11 for me. And totally has been an expansive and generative 11 years. I also have been taking Paul's class, which has deepened my relationship with the festival. I'm signed up for 2 so far this year. I always sign up as myself and as Rancho Chaotic. The Rancho, he's trying to start a revolution. He's going commercial this year. He's supporting a local artist, Deborah Roberts, here in Austin, Texas. I'm using 2 of her commercially created postcards. And then for the first group I'm in, I've been working with this pile of 1910 to 1930 magazines that were gifted to me. The paper is so brittle. One whole piece I created, I just crumbled paper onto sticky glue, and we'll see what they turn into. Here's the thing. It's for one person. This is a gift that I get these things in the mail. I get shivers because it was made for me. It was written for me. It's one thing. And that is such a beautiful concept and idea for me. That's kind of where I land, that nobody else in the world gets it, just you. And that opens up my heart.
This will be my 4th or 5th year, and I've been really inspired by the extremely unique postcards I've received. But again, I start on the postcards fronts well in advance, and then I sort of hopefully let that kind of dictate where the poem is going to go. But I write the poems on a daily basis, unedited, which is really, really difficult for me. But I have committed the cardinal sin of clipping things out of a set of world encyclopedias. And I mean, it feels like a sin. And then I say, well, no, it's okay. It really is okay. I don't think there's a law against it. I have literally cut diary or journal entries from my late mother's journal and used those. I have collected 5x7 cardboard dividers in boxes of canned cat food that make perfect cheap postcards. I've collected dried and used different leaves and flora, you know, in different seasons that then become part of the postcard front. I've been really creepy at times and researched the locale of specific poets on my list, found like the name of a diner or a particular cemetery and named that in the poem or called that out in the poem to that particular poet. So it becomes a bit of spy work. The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, there's hundreds of these recently created words that define very specific emotions that have not previously had words attached to them, that can really, just upon reading, create their own poems.
And I just love the real dailiness of it. I like things that make me do something in a very repetitive way to get over that notion of this is a big deal. Because I think whatever you're doing, painting or art or writing, is eventually gets easier. You just keep going and you ignore that, you know, this is a big deal or people think it's a big deal. You just do it. And so it becomes part of your day.
I have a quotation book that when a quotation captures me, I write it down in a book, and I went blank for a while. Well, what am I going to write on these postcards? So I just went back to that book and shared a lot of quotes, and the person who said it's from one person when you open the mailbox, and it's just something very special. Yeah. So thanks, Paul, and I'm back, and I'm hooked.
And I would like other people to think of what would be good projects to create to expand the awareness of the fest. We had a beautiful anthology, 56 Days of August, that came out 6 years ago. So we're coming up on the 20th anniversary, and now is a good time to be starting to plan an anthology. However, that's not my call. I would leave it up to the Poetry Postcard Fest Project Board to decide, an anthology would be a good thing. I would also love it if after the fest, we had some content from postcard poets on the blog so that people could see and sort of bask in that summer feeling. For me, postcards are very much a summer thing. I have big faith in Ina and Judy and Zach and Sally and Margaret to do some interesting things with the Postcard Fest. And like I said, I would really like to see this, the global aspect of it, expand. When you are sending poems and receiving poems from someone from another place, I think it makes you a lot less likely to bomb it or to want to do violence against someone from that country because you know them a little bit. So I intend to pursue this notion of the Postcard Fest as a global community of poets for peace.
But one of the ways I keep it very alive for myself throughout the year is that I take my packet of postcards that I receive, which I've read lots of times because I love them, and I use them as bookmarks through the year in whatever books that I'm reading. And so every time I open my book, I get that little magical feeling again as the first time that I opened my mailbox and found the card. So that's really a special thing that I've established doing over the years. And even the few years that I was away from it, I still use postcards that I received. And another thing that I was going to say was I have often, and I did a little test, but I look at the town or city that I'm writing to or that the person has sent me the postcard from. And I have learned about so many places across the country and across the world, and like gone in and really been fascinated to read about their city. And sometimes I can find things in a response type of poem. And that's a lot of fun for me. It also, when you just can't come up with something, it's a fun way to get your brain, to come up with something creative for the person. So
I oftentimes would get inspiration from the postcard picture, whatever that was. And I had fun kind of buying them from all over. It is so fun to get them. And I enjoyed finding the addresses. I would think about places I've been that maybe were the same city where I was sending a card. And a couple of times I had a particular event happen in one of the places where the person was that I sent the card to, and wrote a little poem about that. So it was just fun. And then getting mail is always exciting, and I especially enjoyed the handwriting. Some of it's difficult to read, but it's so personal because the person had it in his hand or her hand. And there's an intimacy there that it's being lost unless we keep this up.
The 4th of July, the lists go out and people don't have to wait. There are those who like that rush of 31 poems in 31 days.
Not me.
And I tell people, I really don't care when you start. I'd like you to finish by August 31st. 7th Cascadia Poetry Festival happens at Spring Street Center, October 6, 7, 8. Among the featured poets are Brenda Hillman, Tess Gallagher, Andrew Schelling, Jan Zwicky, Robert Bringhurst, Teresa Whitehill, and Cedar Saigo, and others. It's going to be really remarkable. I hope you can attend Cascadia Poetry Festival 7. We celebrate 30 years. Cascadia Poetics Lab celebrates 30 years in December on the 14th, and we're going to be having a party in January and hopefully releasing another book of interviews from the podcasts and from our audio archive. Details on that coming soon.